Hey, what's going on YouTube? Son of Sanguinius here, and today we're going to be continuing our Blood Angels Tactics videos by going over the Scout Squad. So, without further ado, let's just dive into the stat breakdown here. They come in at 55 points. Now, they used to be Weapon and Ballista Skill 3, but thanks to the recent FAQ and errata, Blood Angel Scout Squads are now Weapon and Ballista Skill 4. Strength 4, Toughness 4, 1 Wound, Initiative 4, 1 Attack, Leadership 8, and a 4-up Armor Save. The Scout Sergeant and Veteran Sergeant are the same thing, with the exception that the Veteran Sergeant has 2 attacks and is Leadership 9. For War Gear, they have Scout Armor, a Bolt Gun, Bolt Pistol, Frag and Crack Grenades. Special rules, they have And They Shall Know No Fear, Combat Squad, Furious Charge, Infiltrate, Move Through Cover, and Scout. And for options here, they may include up to 5 additional scouts for 11 points per model. The entire squad may take camo cloaks for 2 points per model. Any model may replace their bolt gun with a Space Marine shotgun or close combat weapon for free. Any model may replace their bolt gun with a sniper rifle for 1 point per model. One scout may replace his bolt gun with one of the following: a heavy bolter for 8 points, which can also take Hellfire shells for an additional 5 points. A missile launcher with frag and crack missiles for 15 points, and then they can take flak missiles for an additional 10 points on top of that. You can upgrade the Scout Sergeant to a Veteran Sergeant for 10 points. The Scout Sergeant or Veteran Scout Sergeant may take items from the melee or range weapon lists. The Scout Sergeant and or Veteran Sergeant may take items from the, they may take Melta Bombs for 5 points. And the Scout Sergeant or Veteran Sergeant may take a Teleport Homer for 10 points. So, Scout Squads. A lot of Blood Angels players kind of gravitate towards these guys because they fill out our necessary, troops tax, as it has come to be seen. And a lot of our, at least as far as the Combined Arms Detachment and the Ball Strike Force are concerned. And while they may not be as resilient as a tactical squad, Scout Squads can be surprisingly difficult to get out of ruins or any kind of cover or anything like that. So the way I see it, Scout Squads are really designed to take distant objectives. You're not really meant to deploy them alongside the rest of your army, although I suppose that is an option if you had, let's say, a lot of objectives in your deployment zone. You want to be moving the rest of your army in, but you can't move everything, so why not leave the Scout Squads behind to sort of provide some overwatching fire? Which that is, a consideration, but really I sort of see the Scout Squads as being meant to sort of infiltrate their way onto some other objectives around the table. So they're meant to sort of get out of your deployment zone and just sort of, sit in one place and try and hold the objective as best as they can. And on top of that, they're pretty cheap at 55 points. The cheapest troop choice within the Blood Angels Codex. Out of the two of them, they are pretty cheap and fairly effective for what they do. Now, generally speaking, I've never really seen like a 10-man Scout Squad, or if I do, it's always been combat squadded into 2 separate squads that have sort of been placed around the table. Scout Squads, I've never really seen them used in big, massive bulks. That's kind of not what they're designed to do. Most times they're designed to sort of keep the squad at its minimum and then just give them whatever they need to accomplish their battlefield role, and then just sort of plant them on an objective by using Infiltrate, and then just leave them there, and then pick off some enemy troop choices, or just start harassing and annoying some of your enemies' elites or fast attacks. Maybe heavy support if it's like an infantry heavy support, but things like that. So how do I like to use them? Honestly, I kind of like giving them sniper rifles and camo cloaks. The camo cloaks thing is obvious. That 4-up armor save isn't going to protect them from everything, and you're probably going to want these guys in some cover anyway. So having a 3-up cover save is pretty good. That makes them more or less as resilient as Space Marines, although if your opponent comes in with anything that ignores cover, be wary of that. as far as the sniper rifles versus the bolt guns are concerned, if you want your scout squad to sort of be picking off specific units and going after, say, the sergeants or the aspiring champions of your enemies' armies, then I can definitely see sort of using the scouts sniper rifles that way with the precision shot special rule. It should be a nice way to sort of lower the leadership of specific units, and also as sort of a nice way to pick off anything that might be particularly scary in your opponent's army, as far as infantry or jump infantry is concerned. Now, depending on what you're going to be going up against, you may want to give them, say, like either the heavy bolter or missile launcher. I would say the heavy bolter is primarily if you're going up against an infantry heavy army, especially with something like the Hellfire shells, which can be surprisingly effective. I believe it's something like blast ignores cover, heavy one, something along those lines. So that can be pretty interesting if it's used right, especially against something like Tyranids or Orcs or anything like that. The missile launcher, though, I tend to give my scout squads a missile launcher because it is sort of diverse in the fact that it can fire frag and crack, but also it's one of the few things that can take flak missiles for some anti-air, which is something that the Blood Angels Codex is sorely lacking. We don't have the Stalker double A vehicles or any real anti-air, with the exception of the Storm Raven and Scout Squads. I think we do have some. We could also use Devastators, but I don't know too many Blood Angels players that bother with Devastators. So heavy bolter for infantry heavy armies, missile launcher for taking out some of your enemies' vehicles. So I have seen some interesting thoughts with regards to close combat and scouts. Obviously, you can sort of nestle your scouts nice and close to your enemy, at least within 12 inches, given the terrain of the table. And you can do a little bit of damage with some scout squads, especially since they have Furious Charge, and if you're taking them in, say, something like a Ball Strike Force or like an Angel's Blade Strike Force or something like that, they're going to have the Red Thirst, which means they're going to be hitting at higher initiative. So, it's the same deal with, Strength 5, Initiative 5, a whole bunch of, at least 10 attacks. Depending on how you kitted out your sergeant, it might be a little bit higher than that. But 10 attacks, Strength 5, Initiative 5, that can do a little bit of work. But generally speaking, I tend not to use my scouts in that way, simply because I find them much better just sort of nestled in the back, keeping those objectives and laying down some supporting fire. And like I said, using the sniper rifles with that precision shot special rule, taking out the sergeants or the equivalent in my opponent's troop choices or elites or something like that. And again, just sort of like the last thing to sort of mention here, the teleport homer. I mentioned this with a tactical squad. The teleport homer can come up in some cases and be really handy. And I think that that's particularly true with scout squads, because as I said in my tactical squad tactics video, the scout squad is obviously going to be up close, possibly on objectives, and they're going to be probably moved much more forward than the rest of your army is when it comes to deployment. So the thing about using teleport homers on tactical squads is, okay, well, your tactical squad may not be in the best position to drop in your Terminators. Your scout squads, on the other hand, you're probably going to try and place them as close as possible to the objectives, and no doubt your opponent is going to look at these squishy scout marines and be like, okay, well, sure, they got their cover saves or whatever, but maybe I'll just send in my my raptors or my a big blob of orc boys and just sort of mow them down in volume of dice. So that's sort of where the teleport armor can just, you can sort of back up your scouts, your new recruits of the chapter with your veterans of the chapter, and bring down some Terminators to sort of even the odds. So that can definitely be something to consider, especially when we got things like the Archangel's Orbital Intervention Force and a little bit more a little bit more relevant now, but perhaps not so much, is the Archangel's Demi Company that allows us to call in reserves from turn 1, if you recall from the Angel's Blade supplement. It's a little bit less useful because they have the Descent of Angels. I don't know if they actually call it Descent of Angels. They may call it something else in the Angel's Blade supplement, but essentially they only scatter 1d6 instead of 2d6, so the benefit of bringing them down with a teleport homer isn't as great as opposed to something like the Archangel's Orbital Intervention Force that scatters full distance. It's great that it's you can charge the turn that they arrive or whatever, but they're going to be scattering the full 12 inches. So bringing them down with teleport homers can definitely be something useful and something to consider. So anyway, that's all the time I have for this video. Feel free to like and subscribe, leave your comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next video.